Yeah, that's not much sure. Ajo, Arizona. Double A. Ajo A and Arizona A. Double A.
There you go.
Ajo meaning garlic.
Yeah. Well, or red.
What do you mean or red? In what?
I think that might have been the Indian version of it. I think that's actually the real, or something. Yeah, I think that's the Indian interpretation.
Hopi?
Huh?
Hopi?
Not that area. The Tohono.
Now wait a minute now. What Indians do you have in that area? What tribes do you have in
It's
it?
a Tohono.
The what?
Tohono.
Tohono.
Yes, Tohona. O, then O, then like a dash, then a little O, then D, O, then HAM. The O to ham.
Tohono.
That's what I say, but I'm not the my accent is really not there.
You know, Hopi's a lot easier.
They're not as strong.
They're not as strong.
I mean, they're not as hard on the pronunciation. They're like softer with it.
The real way.
The way they say it, right? I can't say.
Is that the only tribe in the area, or do they have other ones?
That's the term. They have 12 different groups, 12 different districts that all have different names.
All part of the Tohono.
Right. Then they had a 13th that tried to get into the tribe. That's another close friend of Gloria's. She has like a place in Puerto Penasco. She brought us there. But they split off and they're trying to start another group that was kind of related with Yuma, and they were like a hunter-gatherer group that went between the place. And they were supposed to be the Hatchet Odom or whatever.
Hatchet?
Yeah. Or Hatchet. Whatever.
Hot chicks?
Hot chicks, yeah. And but I guess then they got denied, so they're trying to start another name in some Tucson area. Anyway, that's the group.
You know what? It sounds familiar though. Tohono O'odham. That sounds familiar. I feel like I heard that sometime.
I think they have about 20,000 Indians in that group, and then they. Like I said, I was kind of like video mapping out their different areas and stuff right around there.
Now you know that I have some Indian blood in me. Not a hell of a lot, but some. You know what Indians that is?
Is that the Hopi? No.
That's Native American. I'm talking Peru.
Oh, Peru. The Maya?
Famous.
Huh?
Famous.
The Maya?
It's Mexican.
Okay. The Peruvian.
Who built Machu Picchu? One of the new 7 wonders of the world.
Okay, who?
You don't know?
Who?
The Incas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The Incas.
Yeah.
So I have some Inca blood in me on my mother's side. My grandparents on my mother's side, both born and raised in the mountain in the Andes.
Okay.
They aren't from the coastal city of Lima. My grandparents come from the Andes mountain, which is where most of the Indians are, obviously. So yeah. But what's really interesting is my great grandfather was Remy. His last name was Remy.
Okay.
You know where that's from, right?
Where?
France.
Okay.
That's French, Remy. So I don't know how in the fuck some Frenchman made it over to Peru, but they must have, because Remy, that's French.
I guess my real name might have been like Victor Omen, because my
Your real name? Victor Omen?
Right. Because my dad's father was, I guess, was messing around with his mother, and his name was Victor Omen, and then they named my father. It was Victor Edward. They named him Victor Edward Omen. And then before he got in the military, his mother changed his birth certificate. And my mother's aunt worked at the the recorder's office. She was like the public, whatever you call it. And she ended up being the judge of that town, and like the highest paid person in Michigan or whatever is the judge in this place. So she had to change. I guess she changed that record.
Changed it
for her mother to change his name to Robert Edward Trudell from the Victor Edward Omen on his birth certificate.
Are you saying
when he was 16?
Are you saying that your last name should be Omen?
Yeah.
Why did they change it to Trudell?
Because that was his original father, and they were, I guess, embarrassed with this certificate, or his mother was, or something. Didn't want him to know about this, because they always called him. They were, when he was a parent, when he got older or whatever, they were calling him like Robert and Trudell, because the one she was married to was still Trudell, and she was,
So your real then Trudell is your real last name then, but it's the real one,
right? But it should be. I mean, it could be Omen, because that was my dad's real name. So they were 16. They just changed it on the.
Yeah, but if you go back in history, it's Trudell.
Right. Not that I have any Trudell blood in.
You don't?
No. Just Pratt and this Omen guy. I guess this Omen guy, he killed himself when he was 49. He gassed himself.
So what? You don't have any Trudell blood in you?
No.
No? Huh. And yet your ancestors are Trudell.
Like all his brothers and sisters were Trudells. And then I guess also she had a daughter before him or whatever, and I ended up finding her just a few years ago. She had like adopted this daughter out, Diane, and to another person in the town they were in. I just found, and I guess my mother's aunt knew about that and tried to break up their marriage with the father, because she had because her mother had gave her daughter away or something, that she was trying to break it up with my mother's parents or something. Didn't think that was
cool,
righteous enough or whatever.
Yeah.
So she was trying to break up that marriage, and just a couple of years ago, I ended up tracking her down. We had some like search angels.
Oh yeah.
Helping us find her. So they kind of hooked up with. They've all hooked up with the family. But I guess my dad and that aunt or whatever were going to the same school, so they were close. They could have dated each other. I guess groups knew each other at that time. So.
Well, what are you happy with? Are you happy with Trudell, or would you have preferred Odom?
Omen.
Omen.
O-M-A-N.
O-M.
O-M-A-N.
A-N. Which one would you have preferred?
I like the story now. I like them both.
You like them both. Okay. But your blood is actually
from this Omen guy. And this guy
from Omen.
Omen. And I don't like the fact that he killed himself with a gas in the house when he was like 41.
He killed himself with what?
He gassed himself.
Really?
And his father, they would think.
No, wait a minute, Rabbit. Let me get this straight. The guy that killed himself with gas was related to you?
It was my dad's father.
Your grandfather.
Right.
Your grandfather.
Right, and we didn't. He didn't know. And I guess they thought he was from.
What was his first name?
Victor.
Why did he kill himself with gas?
No, I guess he was sad or something.
Depressed.
Because his mother wouldn't let my father or her son or my father see each other. They kind of is what they said. And I guess they thought he was from Finland because he had like a Finnish accent. We were trying to figure out where he was in Finland, but I ended up finding out that he was from where? He was born in Washington. Yeah. His father was from Finland, and his mother. And I guess he ended up dying
so
young. I guess like a mine was collapsing, so he went to try to hold up the mine, to save the other people, and then it like crushed him.
Who's that? Your grandfather?
My great grandfather.
Your great grandfather.
So then when he died, his wife and my grandfather went back to Finland. So then he was like raised over there, and they came back when he was like in his 20s or something. Started working in the area where my
Victor.
Victor came back here.
In what part of the States was he?
Like in UP.
UP?
Yeah.
Where's that?
Upper Peninsula of Michigan, in Michigan.
Okay, only a Michigan person would understand UP. Okay, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Okay, I got you.
Or actually, he might have been in a lower.
I'm from the Midwest, so if you tell me Upper Peninsula, that's good enough. I know.
They're like. But
I've been to
like
Michigan.
In Nuevo area, in that area. I think, he was doing like.
You lived in Michigan, right?
Yeah, for a little while.
I remember.
As a little kid.
Yeah, right.
Just like when my dad went to Vietnam, and then when they went to Guam for a while. My grandmother was my first grade teacher.
Now your great grandfather's the one who got crushed.
Right, he was in Bellevue, Washington, or somewhere around there. They had some kind of coal mine. And my parents ended up after that. They were like trying to track him down and found like an actually newspaper article that they had with him detailing him being crushed in this mining accident while he's like trying to hold up the mine.
In Finland.
In Bellevue, Washington.
That's your great grandfather?
My great grandfather, and that's where my
was in Bellevue.
Right,
but he traveled.
That's where his son, Victor, my grandfather, was born.
But your great grandfather migrated from Finland.
Right.
And your great grandmother is also from Finland.
Right.
Okay. So you're part Finnish.
I guess so. Partly Finnish, not completely.
What about on your mother's side?
My mother said, actually, I also found another interesting thing. My dad's father, my dad's mother's side.
Your dad's mother's side. Okay,
was
right.
With the Pratts, and they.
Where are they from?
I think they were from the same area that my.
Your great grandfather was?
My mother's and dad's were both from Ireland. They started the church. They were like the Puritans, right?
Your father's mother.
Huh?
Your grandfather's mother.
Right. The Pratt side. They came from
Ireland,
like in this. Like the 1633 or something, and my mom.
16, did you say?
Yeah. We also have some people who came on the Mayflower, but from
what?
But from 1630, they both founded Hartford, Connecticut. I guess they both lived. They were like in the church, and I guess these Pratts they split up into two places. One that started the Mormon church, and then another one that was on my dad's side was. Stayed, I think, with the Puritans or whatever. Ended up going to Michigan. These Pratts, and they started.
Are your parents religious?
Yeah, they're like Lutheran.
They're Lutheran.
But like I said, I think they were both their side kind of founded Finland and stuff. And also my mom. I guess on my mom's side, they both like the father and son were both. The fought in that Lexington battle green battle together. They were, I think, the only two father and son team that
Lexington.
Yeah, that shot heard around the world or whatever.
Of course.
They fought in that battle
They fought in that battle?
Yeah.
Now, who was that fought in that battle?
It was like I think. Trying to think of their name. I think their relative was like this Coley. Like they kind of detailed this whole thing. I'm trying to think of their name, but I think it was this Coley. And they also started the longest running bar ever in Springfield, Massachusetts.
The longest running bar.
Yeah, in the U.S.
Who was the owner?
I think it was one of these Eli's or something like that. Like
it wasn't your family?
No, it was it was like ancestors of my mother's side.
Way back?
Yeah, like in it was in the 1600s.
Ancestors of your mother had the longest running bar.
Right. In the spring, and I guess the guy owned like a slave or something. They kind of detailed it.
Son of a bitch! This is before the Revolution, man.
Right.
Wait a minute.
Right.
Wait a minute, 1600. When did the settlers? When did the colonials come from England, man?
Well,
1600s. Wait a minute.
I think they first came here with 1492 with the Pilgrims and some of her. I guess there's some that came also on the Mayflower in the was it 1492? Yeah. My uncle was researching it. He also found somebody on that.
So what you're saying is that some of your family came over in the Mayflower?
Yeah.
Really? No shit. Really? So your family,
closer group, huh?
Your ancestors go back to the Mayflower?
Yeah.
Oh shit. And they had one of the longest running bars?
And I think it's still open to us in Springfield, Massachusetts.
No shit. Really? That's impressive. That's really impressive.
And then they have a detailed history of how they went. I got this. They put this together. I was kind of my mother had it. I also had some pictures, like some of the first pictures ever made. They have this daguerreotype that's called.
Well, let me see now. Some of the first pictures ever made were like in the late 1800s, I think, right?
Somewhere around
1880s, 1890s?
1850s, something like 1849.
Really?
They're called the daguerreotypes or whatever.
That was the beginning of photography?
Photography or something. And then my dad had like this box that he got from my grandmother, and he put it out of the street, free frames or something that had these things in it. And I guess they're really expensive. They're worth a lot of money, whoever they are. So,
your father had these photos?
Or they picked it up from my grandma's house or whatever, and had made some.
And what did he do with them? With the photos?
I said he had some friends, and then he just put them out on the street to give them away or whatever.
The photos?
Yeah, and then nobody took them, so they brought them back, and then somehow I ended up with them, and I brought them to my photography class, right? So they're just like little, kind of pocket photos or whatever. And they were supposed to. I had a project in my photography class in Yuma to restore photos, so I was going to get that, and I found these one photos. It was like with must have been my grandmother's grandmother or whatever that did this. And she had her and her sister, and there was. Then I found the one photo that was the daguerreotype, and I brought it. It looked like a piece of glass or something. It was like cracked or something. So I said, okay, that looked like it's more hard. I brought that in, but in that one it had a guy in it. But the ones that were blown up, he was like washed out of that photo. So I was trying to figure out who he was too.
So you have still those Garo photos?
Yeah, the daguerreotype.
You have them.
I guess the people who took those, they're kind of dangerous chemicals in it. The photographers at that time would die from the exposure to these dangerous chemicals.
But I mean, you have those photos, the Garo photos?
Yeah.
With you?
Not in my pocket. But I have them at my house in the shop. Right.
So they were saved.
Right. Yeah.
They weren't lost.
Right. Yeah.
And those are your ancestors in those photos?
Yeah.
From the
1850, something like that.
No shit. And you have photos of your great. Those are your great.
It's my grandmother's great-grandmother. Then I also have her aunt had a bunch of postcards from them too that they were sending them at the time from the 1800s and stuff. So I have like a whole book from her, where she was sending. They were like communicating.
So you're saying that you have photos of the great-grandparents of your grandparents?
Or my grandmother, right?
Which would be your great-great-great-grandparents. You have photos of them?
Yeah.
No shit.
So then I was researching. They also did like a story. I guess they started. They started out this town, and it was between Kalamazoo and what do you call it? Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids or something. They had like a little outpost between those two towns where they would have. They started like a hotel for the stagecoach going between there. They kind of like drew some pictures of that and did some stories of that.
And is that where they were living at the time?
Yeah, they were like pioneers
in Michigan.
And they were like some of the first settlers in Michigan, I guess.
And it wasn't called Michigan back then.
I don't know what it was. Yeah, but I guess.
I mean, it hadn't become Michigan yet.
And then they had some stories of all the relatives in between on each one of these pages or whatever. And they were talking about how they, went through 6 feet of snow in Ohio or something to get some bacon and something to bring back.
I mean, you were so lucky. You know how hard. There's very, very few people who have pictures of their ancestors going way back to the beginning of photography.
Yeah, and I guess those were really expensive to have at the time, but that little place in between ended up making some good money when they had the stagecoach line there before they put on the railroad and stuff, before they invented the railroad or whatever.
Man, I can't believe you have photos of your ancestors going all the way back.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, how clear can you see their faces? How good are the photos? They're pretty good?
Yeah, very clear. Sure.
Really? Because, I mean, the technology back then was just beginning.
All right. And what was it? The one guy who bought my house, we were doing a thing like where we were restoring. He helped, restore one of the. The person she married also had one too, and he restored that too. So we had my grandmother's great-grandfather and grandfather, and grandmother too. So.
You were so lucky to have those photos. I mean, almost nobody has photos so old. I mean, that's like historical.
Right.
You only see like the museums. Because, I mean, those photos were taken when? 1860? 1850?
I think it was 1853 or 1857, something like that.
Shit.
I was kind of researching that.
I mean, how could they have photos that were clear back then? Is my question. If the technology was just starting out, how could they have good images? Is my question.
People had to stay still for a long period of time when they took them because they had like a little hole, but they had a big. Well, actually, I think these were went directly on the plate. So this sign. And actually, what was it? Her son, one of her sons got. Oh, excuse me. Can you do it again? So they, he got really into photography. He had some really good photographic equipment. I had a bunch of pictures from them too.
So they had the technology even at the beginning to come out with clear photos.
Right, but people just had to be still. You couldn't move real fast.
I know, but regardless,
you had to sit in a position for a few minutes and not move.
Yeah, but regardless, though, it would come out clear.
Yeah,
you can
and
see.
You could blow it up. Like I said, they blew this image up, and it was still sharp from the little image or whatever. And I did too. I did like a digital thing.
Now those photos are on your father's side or your mother's side?
My mother's side.
Your mother's side.
I guess they were kind of the more the richer side or whatever.
They had more money?
Yeah. I guess, what was it? I was reading some stories about her. I guess they went up to higher in Michigan or whatever, and they were talking about how nobody was around there, and I guess they had like 40 cows or whatever, and she'd milk the cows every morning. Yeah, did a lot of writing, I think. I don't know if she was like a school teacher, but she had a pretty good education.
Correct me. Isn't this around the time of the Civil War?
Oh, this is before that. When they went there. Yeah, this was kind of like way before that when they went there. It's like when they went there was.
No, I mean the photos. The photos.
The photos were before. It was like 1850, 1857.
And when was the Civil War?
1865.
Not too far. Not too far. Amazing.
They kind of switched different type of photos after that, which aren't worth as much, I guess, if you have those. But
man, Rob, I can't believe you have those photos. I can't believe it. I would kill to have photos of my fuck, not even that far back. I'd kill to have photos of my great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents, you know? I mean, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine having photos from 18 whatever.
Who was it? Her husband, and I have a picture of him. He kind of looked like me.
Who?
My grandmother's great-grandfather.
Looked a little bit like you?
Yeah.
Oh shit. So what's the combination then? You have Finnish, Irish. What else do you have?
And German. I think my grandfather. We end up when I was over in Germany. We end up visiting. I ended up actually. There was like a mayor of this town that was on the border of East Germany, and I went over there when I was 15. And I think my grandfather was corresponding with this mayor who was doing like ancestry research, and he thought his grandfather had come from this town of near the border. I forgot what Los Spec or something. And we ended up visiting. He was corresponding with this one person that spoke English.